Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're stepping back in time, way back, to ancient Sāvatthī, to the Jetavana monastery.
Huh?
Picture this quiet place, monks meditating, that sort of thing. Sounds peaceful.
It does.
But we're not just talking meditation today. We're diving into, well, a seemingly small incident that tells us a lot about leadership, about how communities actually work, and get this, how rules sometimes come from really unexpected places.
That's exactly right. We're unpacking a fascinating story from a Buddhist text, Nissaggiya, XV. It kicks off with the Buddha wanting some quiet time, a personal retreat.
Okay.
But then somehow it twists and turns and ends up with a very, very specific rule about monastic seat cover.
Seat covers. From a spiritual retreat, that sounds like, well, quite a leap.
It does, doesn't it?
So our mission today is to explore how these community rules, even the ones that sound maybe a bit mundane, aren't just invented. They actually grow out of real life, unexpected stuff, human behavior, and finding the wisdom to adapt. Let's get into it.
Okay. So the setting is Jetavana, this monastery in Sāvatthī, given to the Sangha, that's the monastic community, by Anathapindika.
Right.
And the Buddha decides he wants a 3-month retreat. It's called a Dhammasa Pasalitu.
3 months, that's significant.
It is. And during that time, his request was pretty clear, pretty strict. Nobody should approach him, except for one person, a single monk, bringing him alms.
Just one person. And the rest of the community, the Sangha there in Sāvatthī, they didn't just nod along, did they? They really reinforced this.
Oh, absolutely. They made a formal agreement, a katika, basically a resolution.
Okay.
And it stated that any bhikkhu, any monk who went near the Buddha, apart from that one almsgatherer, would face a pācittiya offense.
A pācittiya, that's a disciplinary thing, right? Requires a confession.
Exactly. So it shows they were really serious about protecting the Buddha's solitude. They weren't messing around.
Serious commitment.
Yeah.
So everyone's agreed, the rule is clear.
And this is where it gets interesting. Despite this very clear, very strict rule, along comes a venerable Upasena Vaṅgantaputta with his group. They just arrive.
Unexpectedly.
Unexpectedly. And they walk right up to the Buddha, salute him, and, well, sit down.
Wow. Just like that. Directly against the rule they just made.
Just like that.
You'd expect, I don't know, alarm bells.
Yeah.
A quick reminder of the katika.
You would. But the Buddha, instead of, calling them out immediately, he greets Upasena really warmly, asks how they are, about their journey, if it was tiring.
Huh. That's surprising.
Yeah.
Welcoming someone who just broke a rule set up for his benefit. What does that tell us right away? Is he just ignoring the rule?
I think it tells us volumes about his leadership style. It's wisdom over maybe rigid enforcement. He sees the people first, asks about their well-being.
Okay.
It immediately changes the dynamic. It's not a confrontation, it's an inquiry. It kind of sets the stage for what happens next. It's not just about enforcing rules blindly.
So a warm welcome despite the infraction. You'd think the next step would be, okay, about that rule. But, right? The conversation takes another turn.
It does, and it goes somewhere quite specific, almost personal. The Buddha turns to Upasena's attendant disciple and asks him about his feelings towards paṃsukūlika rag robes.
Rag robes, like robes made from discarded cloth. Why that?
Exactly. And the disciple is remarkably frank. He says basically, no, I don't really like them.
He admits it to the Buddha.
Admits it. But says he wears them because his teacher, Upasena, is a paṃsukūliko, someone who wears rag robes.
Okay, so Upasena is known for this practice. But why is the Buddha asking about robe preferences right then? Seems a bit random.
It seems random, but it's not really small talk. He's gently exploring Upasena's influence, the kind of discipline in his group, the dedication of his followers. It leads him to ask Upasena directly, how do you guide your assembly?
Ah, okay, so it connects. And what does Upasena say?
Upasena lays out his method, and it's quite rigorous. For anyone wanting ordination, upasampada, he tells them straight up, look, I'm an araññaka, a forest dweller, a piṇḍapātika, an almsgatherer, and a paṃsukūlika, a rag robe wearer.
The whole package of ascetic practices.
Right. And he says, I'll only ordain you if you commit to doing the exact same thing.
Wow. No compromise.
None. And it's the same for monks just seeking his guidance or mentorship, what's called Nissaggiya. Same deal. Commit to these 3 tough practices, or you can't stay under my guidance.
So he's cultivating a very specific kind of community, isn't he? Based on shared, pretty demanding asceticism. Not just general monastic rules, but his particular interpretation.
Exactly. A very clear, principled leadership shaping his group through these shared austerities. It's quite distinct.
Okay, so the Buddha now understands Upasena's whole approach. Then does he bring up the retreat rule?
Yes, now he asks Upasena, "So, did you know about the Sangha's resolution regarding my retreat?"
And Upasena says,
He admits, quite simply, "No, I didn't know about it."
so he genuinely broke a rule he was unaware of. Meanwhile, those other monks are probably waiting outside, right? Ready to pounce.
Presumably, yes. But Upasena's response, even finding out he broke a rule unknowingly, is really telling.
What does he say?
He doesn't just make excuses, he basically affirms the principle. He says something like, the Sangha in Sāvatthī will uphold its own resolutions. He emphasizes this idea of, not making new rules where none exist, not getting rid of existing ones, but following the training rules already laid down.
So, even though he didn't know this specific rule, he respects the process of rulemaking and adherence itself. That's quite profound, actually.
It is. It shows a deep respect for the Sangha's autonomy and the spirit of the discipline, beyond just knowing every single temporary resolution.
And how does the Buddha react to that?
He praises Upasena for that understanding. And then he does something really significant. He creates an exception on the spot.
An exception.
Yes. He explicitly says that those bhikkhus who are forest dwellers, alms gatherers, and rag robe wearers, the very practices Upasena champions are permitted to approach him whenever they like during the retreat.
Wow. So Upasena's specific rigorous lifestyle earns his group a pass. That's a major moment. It's balancing the need for solitude with recognizing maybe a certain level of spiritual dedication.
Precisely. It's this incredible display of discernment. The Buddha acknowledges that the kind of commitment shown by Upasena and his followers, their embrace of austerity, maybe warrants a different consideration than a general rule designed for perhaps less intensely focused monks. It's not throwing out the rule, but refining it based on observed dedication.
Okay, so Upasena gets this special permission. What about those monks waiting outside, ready to accuse him of the pācittiya?
Well, that situation just dissolves, doesn't it? Upasena leaves the Buddha, finds the waiting monks, and calmly informs them, actually, the Buddha just gave special permission for monks like us to visit.
Huh. Pulls the rug right out from under them.
Completely. Their planned accusation is now moot. And it reinforces the idea that rules, even new ones or exceptions, need to be followed. The Buddha himself just clarified the rule.
And what's the immediate effect of this news? The special permission.
Oh, it causes quite a stir. It's a wonderfully human moment. Hearing that monks practicing these specific austerities can see the Buddha, suddenly lots of other monks who were previously quite comfortable,
They suddenly find an interest in austerity.
You got it. They immediately ditch their comfy beds and lodgings, their santatani. They scramble to adopt the outward signs, becoming forest dwellers, alms gatherers, and rag robe wearers, at least nominally.
Just so they can qualify for the exemption and get to see the Buddha. It's like
Yeah.
suddenly deciding you love camping just to get into a restricted area.
Exactly. It really highlights maybe the allure of access, or perhaps how adaptable people can be when there's a perceived benefit.
So suddenly you have monks leaving their stuff behind.
And that's the key. This sudden rush, this abandonment of belongings, leads directly to the next development. The Buddha, later, is inspecting the monastic lodgings.
And what does he find?
He finds all these abandoned seat covers, just left behind everywhere by the monks who rushed off to adopt the ascetic life, however temporarily.
Ah, the physical evidence of the loophole.
Precisely. This very tangible mess, these discarded items, provides the direct practical reason for a new rule.
Okay, so seeing this, the Buddha decides action is needed.
Yes. He observes the situation and states he'll lay down a new training rule, a sikkhāpada, and importantly, he frames it as being for the welfare and comfort of the Sangha.
So it's not punitive, it's practical. It's about maintaining order and, well, tidiness, maybe, stemming directly from this unexpected consequence.
Exactly. It shows how rules can evolve right out of the nitty-gritty of community life.
So what is this rule? Nissaggiya exve, the seat cover rule.
It's quite specific. It says that when a bhikkhu has a new sitting rug made, that's a Nissaggiya
A woven rug, right?
Yes, woven. When they get a new one made, they must take a piece from an old sitting rug. The measure is a Sugata span, the Buddha's own handspan, basically.
Okay, take a piece from an old one. Why?
The text gives two reasons. One is to discolor the new rug araññaka, make it look less new, less appealing, perhaps.
A nod to non-attachment again. Don't get too excited about new things.
Seems like it. And the other reason mentioned is durability therabhavaya. Incorporating the old piece, maybe through specific weaving, makes the new one last longer.
Practical and philosophical. So what happens if you don't do this? If you make a new rug without adding the old piece?
Then it becomes a Nissaggiya pācittiya offense.
We heard pācittiya before requiring confession. What does Nissaggiya mean?
Nissaggiya means forfeiture. The item itself, the improperly made rug, must be given up, relinquished.
Given up to whom?
To the Sangha as a whole, or maybe a group of monks, or even an individual monk. The offending monk has to formally forfeit it.
How does that work? Do they just hand it over?
There's a process. The bhikkhu would confess, saying something like, "Venerable sirs, this sitting rug of mine, I had it made without adding the sugata span from an old one. It is now Nissaggiya. I forfeit it to the Sangha."
A public act of letting go. That's quite something for just a seat cover. Does the text break down the details further, like what counts as old?
It does. Old pupa apparently means even if it's just been used once. And the sugata span piece can be cut round or square, or even integrated by unraveling and reweaving. It also clarifies that making it yourself or having someone else make it for you both fall under the rule.
And there are exceptions, I assume, like always in these rules.
Yes, quite a few. No offense if you do take the sugata span, obviously. Or if you take less because a full span piece wasn't available from the old rug. Or if no old rug piece was available at all.
Practicalities.
Right. Also, no offense if you're just using a rug someone else made incorrectly, or if the woven item is intended for a different purpose, like canopy, a floor covering, a screen, a cushion, or a pillow.
So it's specifically about the sitting rug made without the old piece when it was possible.
Exactly. And, as often seen, there are exemptions for someone considered insane, or for the very first person who ever committed the act before the rule was formally established.
A lot of thought went into this seat cover rule.
It really shows the meticulous nature of the Vinaya, the monastic code.
So let's pull back. We went from the Buddha wanting a quiet retreat to Upasena's unexpected visit, his specific asceticism, the special exception, the rush of monks, the abandoned belongings, and finally, this detailed rule about adding a patch to new seat covers. What does this whole journey really tell us?
I think it tells us that monastic rules, even seemingly minor ones, aren't just abstract commands dropped from the sky. They are deeply embedded in the realities of community life. They emerge from specific events, from human behavior, but admirable, like Upasena's dedication, and, well, perhaps opportunistic, like the monks rushing for access. It shows a living tradition adapting, a leader using wisdom and compassion alongside structure, and the community finding ways to maintain order and uphold its values, like non-attachment and resourcefulness, even in everyday objects. It's this amazing interplay.
What stands out most to you and how this connects the high spirituality of the Buddha's retreat with something as down-to-earth as the fabric of a seat cover? It's quite the connection.
For me, it's the perfect illustration that spiritual life isn't separate from practical life. The Buddha sees the discarded rugs a practical problem and addresses it with a rule that reinforces core spiritual values. It shows that enlightenment and good community management aren't opposed. They actually inform each other. The mundane becomes a vehicle for the profound.
That's a great way to put it. So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's something to think about. How often might seemingly small rules or procedures, maybe in your workplace, your community group, even habits in your own life, have surprisingly complex stories behind them? They might not just be arbitrary. They can be echoes of past challenges, compromises, reactions to specific events, or expressions of underlying values you hadn't noticed. It's a reminder, really, that even the tiniest regulations can hold hidden histories and reveal a lot about how any system evolves. Maybe the next time you bump up against a rule that seems a bit odd, you'll wonder, well, seat cover story here.